Jane Unchained, Talk Live with Michelle FASNACHT, who is in Trinity, Florida. She is a vegan powerhouse, the owner of Green Culture, a plant-based restaurant in that area of Florida that puts together incredible dishes. And she is also the founder of a community school, Solid Rock Community School, where they serve a plant-based meal every day to their students. Michelle, obviously, vegan businesses are struggling. Yours is temporarily closed. I know you have plans to reopen. First of all, what are your feelings and thoughts about this entire thing?
I have a lot of feelings and thoughts about this entire thing. So, of course, I've got two different businesses. We've got the restaurant and we've got the school. And so both things are having different experiences. Okay. But I will tell you personally, my emotions, they mainly range from like angry to sad, to be honest. So personally, our businesses are affected. We've had to lay people off, which we've never had to do before. Our restaurant may not survive this. We're stuck at home under stay-at-home orders. And of course, we know people who have been sick, lost jobs, and died. So I am like super frustrated with other people's personal choices to eat and exploit animals that are affecting the world right now. And so many people just don't see the connection. So like people, they use the words that I talk to all the time. People are always saying personal choice all the time when they are discussing how they eat. Because as a health coach also, I'm constantly talking to people about health and wellness and the best ways to eat for your body. And people are always saying personal choice for eating animals. And I get it when it comes from a personal human health perspective that people can argue that if they want to have heart disease, diabetes, cancer, obesity, high cholesterol, if it only affects them, then that's their personal choice. So I guess people can argue that. But we know that eating animals, so we know they cause lifestyle diseases that kill people every single day. Approximately 1,800 people die a day of heart disease alone. We have a health crisis that's happening every single day that's diet related, and we totally ignore it. But we know that factory farming also is the leading cause of environmental destruction. So how can people say that that's a personal choice? Because environmental destruction affects everything. And then now we have this virus pandemic side of things happening, which is nothing new. And it's happened throughout history. So one can't say this is a personal choice anymore because it's affecting everyone. Look at history. Look at Spanish flu, Ebola, H5N1, the bird flu, SARS, MERS, the swine flu, H1N1, and now we have COVID-19. People's choice to eat and exploit animals has been affecting our nation and the world throughout history. How is there anything personal about that? Because we really do have a choice. So, and I'm going to tell you something, honestly, I didn't realize all of the virus pandemic stuff until COVID-19 hit. Once I learned about how pandemics, they're caused from our need to eat and exploit animals, I was really shocked. I didn't know that. I knew about lifestyle diseases. I knew about obesity. I knew about environmental destruction. I knew about the animals. I didn't know about the viruses and pandemics. How in the world have we ignored this? And honestly, as a vegan, until now, I haven't even heard people talking about that. So I think it's so important that we're taking a look at what people are calling personal choices, because they're affecting everyone. We can't call it personal anymore. We as individuals, we need to stop eating animals. We as individuals, we need to stop exploiting animals. We just need to leave animals alone and stop the risk for these pandemics ever beginning. And then our government, they need to stop subsidizing and supporting industries like factory farms, wet markets, and slaughterhouses, because these are industries that literally cause pain and suffering for animals, illness and disease for humans, and begin pandemics. How can these industries get financial supports and bail out businesses when other businesses who promote health, wellness, compassion, and love can't get that funding, and individuals across our country are losing jobs and struggling to survive? So for me, I can't even believe we're in a society that factory farming, slaughterhouses, and wet markets are legal. I don't even understand. This is 2020. And it really shows to me how serious our food addiction is throughout our country and the world, and how people lose the ability to think reasonably and intelligently when their taste buds are threatened. People will literally choose to risk their lives and the lives of everyone around them to continue their addiction to meat, eggs, and dairy. Like, let's look at the grocery stores right now. The food that I eat or that we vegans eat is there. But the animal products are disappearing like gold. We ban and regulate drugs, but food, which is also addicting and kills people every single day, is either ignored as a topic or it's approved, advertised, and endorsed. Some people don't see the connection of these things. And that's why we're here to raise awareness, and we want to talk about it. That way people can start to make the connection. But for those that have heard this over and over and over again, and they still make the excuses, it just like breaks my heart. You know, I see otherwise caring, sweet people who I love totally ignoring and detaching when it comes to discussing how animals being used as food is harmful to humans and our planet.
Well, there's a difference between being nice and being good.
Yeah,
There's
that's
a
true.
difference between being uninformed and being willfully blind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's happening now, just to cheer you up a little bit, is that Mother Nature is, and listen, we're all experiencing many different emotions over the course of the day. My heart breaks for everyone who has lost a life. I have tremendous respect and admiration for all the first responders, the doctors, the nurses, the paramedics, the firefighters, the police officers who are putting their lives on the line to help save other people. So our pointing out the root cause does not mean that we're not compassionate to those who are suffering. But you can never solve a problem without looking at its source.
Right. We have to talk about it.
To do. And this began in a wet market in China. And we have, just like the other ones, we have this meme that we just put up. MERS from bats and camels, coronavirus from a meat market, bird flu from poultry, SARS, swine flu from pigs, obviously, mad cow from cows, obviously. It's not just China. I could show you right now. This is from New York City, just taken. New York City, somebody putting live chickens in a shopping cart to have them go and get slaughtered. Okay, this is happening right now. And so we really need to look in the mirror, and instead of just considering ourselves pure victims, as a culture, we need to realize we're participants. And so this article here, our cruel treatment of animals led to the coronavirus. The conditions that lead to the emergence of new infectious diseases are the same ones that inflict horrible harm on animals. That was an article in the New York Times, but of course they're still in their food section promoting all the things that are obviously animal products and byproducts that cause terrible harm. There's no nice way to kill an animal who doesn't want to die. So look,
I believe people can change, right? Because I mean, I used to eat animals. You used to, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, I wasn't born vegan.
Right. So it's like we learned, you know, people gave us information, we heard things, we were receptive to it, and we made change. We don't have to do things the way we used to do them. We don't have to follow old traditions. We can be wiser today. We can learn from the past. We can learn from the present, and we can make better choices starting today. And so as an educator, I'm always trying to educate people because I want people to live healthy, happy, long lives. And there's so many things that go along to that, you know, and people need to see the picture and see how everything is connected. And so many people are not privy to this information. And then, like I said, then there's the other people that have the information that ignore it. So you've got two different sets of people. And I feel like our responsibility is to reach those that haven't heard the information before and let them have the information, just like we changed because we heard something or saw something or read something or watched something. We need to constantly be hearing things so we can make good choices moving forward. And we see change every day. And I see it at school every day with students and with parents. I see it as a health coach. I see it in the restaurant. Change happens every day. We just, at this point, we just need change to happen faster.
Well, as Dr. Silas Rao says, and he's the systems analyst who says we're going to have a vegan world by 2026 and is creating a template for how we're going to do it. And when he says a vegan world, he's saying at least 50% of the population vegan by 2026. Veganism is skyrocketing. It's skyrocketing among young people who are often turning their parents vegan. And that's because they're not sitting in front of the television set watching advertiser-based media that's constantly subliminally connecting eating animals and the breast milk of a cow with everything from upward mobility, patriotism, sex appeal, all the nonsense that these highly sophisticated manipulators push on people and brainwash them. And, one of the hallmarks of being brainwashed is that you don't know you're brainwashed. The second you say, well, maybe I'm being brainwashed, that's the moment that you're coming out of the brainwashing.
And you know what is so funny when you're saying that? Do you know how many times a week I hear people, they say to me all the time, oh, you're brainwashed. Vegans are brainwashed. And I'm just like, oh, no, you have it backwards. No, it's not true. So I love what you're saying because it is true. We've been brought up, we are born into this. So we believe this is normal, but it's not normal and it's not the right thing to do. So
let me say a couple of things. One, we are seeing massive structural cracks in this cruel industrialized factory farming system. So what we're seeing now are meat plants closing all over the United States. Okay, you're seeing a lot of them having to close, and then that is leaving these meat counters empty. So one of the reasons why these meat counters are empty now is not just because the people are buying them. It's because they can't keep killing them. In fact, just before I interviewed you, I interviewed two young women who are trying to save 2 million chickens who may already have been killed. They can't be processed because there's no meat slaughterhouse to process them because they've shut down because the workers are coming down with the coronavirus. And so now they're going to kill them. So what they call, this is how crazy our society has gotten, is that, and by the way, we reached out to all those companies and invited them on, and they're invited on anytime. We call killing chickens in a slaughterhouse processing them. God forbid we call it slitting their throats or killing them or any of the other words that we would use for, let's say, killing a person.
Well, we process to make it socially acceptable.
Kill a person. What? And then, because we can't kill them that way, we're going to kill them before they get to the slaughterhouse because the slaughterhouse can't handle it. And we're going to call that depopulation. That's what they call it. And there's various methods that are all just something out of a horror movie that are the veterinary approved methods. Again, there's no nice way to kill a being who doesn't want to die. And so to me, the idea now that we've got a system where billions of animals are, there's a bottleneck. We can't kill them because everybody in the, because not everybody, but a lot of the people in the slaughterhouses are getting infected. Some have died in some slaughterhouses, some are hospitalized, some are asymptomatic carriers. The slaughterhouses are shutting down across the United States. At one point last week, the biggest cluster of coronavirus known in the United States, and that means probably the world, was at a slaughterhouse. So we see now one of the challenges, for example, that Dr. Silas Rao, the systems analyst who had worked with Al Gore and split with Al Gore because Al Gore wouldn't look at the impact of animal agriculture on climate change, wouldn't discuss it to the level it needed to be discussed. He is creating systems to transition our culture to a plant-based world. And one of the key questions that we have to deal with is what happens to all the animals who are backlogged, who we can't kill anymore. And this is happening across the United States because dairy is in decline because they can't force feed kids dairy products. Okay, the schools are closed, so they can't put these containers of breast milk of cows in front of kids and say, drink it, even though a goodly percentage of children in the United States have allergies to breast milk of cows. So what are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
As far as the allergies of,
as far as the fact that we're at a point now where there's a massive fracture in the industrialized animal agriculture system.
There sure is.
And so slaughterhouses are shutting down, at least temporarily. Mm-hmm. There's a backlog of animals, so they've got to be killed another way, and they call that depopulation.
My hope right now is that with this happening with the slaughterhouses, what I'm hoping is, and I'm trying to be positive and hopeful here, is that the majority of the population that eats the animal products, they're going to try other foods. They're going to now try plant-based foods. Because if they can start trying them now out of necessity and out of lack of the food that they want, when they taste how good they are, and they see that they taste so similar, and in some cases, just like what they're used to, that they'll make that change a permanent change. So it's like right now, before this happened, trying to get people to try these foods was really hard because what they like is right there next to it. But because the food is in a shortage, because the animal products are now having some shortages, it's now going to push people to try things that they haven't tried previously. And I think that gives us a real in with people who normally are very headstrong about they won't try plant-based foods, they don't like them, they don't want to give them any type of trial in their life. Well, now hopefully they're going to try things. And honestly, the longer the slaughterhouses are shut down, the more chance that people are going to go out of their comfort zone and try new foods. And the reality is, and I see this every day of my life, is that when people do try the plant-based foods, they like the plant-based foods. So as someone who does that in a restaurant, who does it in a school, who does it as a health coach, I'm constantly giving people plant-based foods to try when they're normally meat eaters. And guess what? They love the food. So if they like the food, they'll continue to eat it. So my thing is, for any meat eaters out here listening to this today, try something new. Go to the plant-based section of the restaurants, or go to the plant-based sections of the grocery stores, and try some of the plant-based foods. Try Gardein and Beyond. Get something that you haven't had before and give it a try. You're gonna see that it tastes delicious, it's healthier for you, it's better for the planet, and it doesn't require slaughtering and killing animals. So it is a win-win-win in every situation. So that's where I wanna be really positive and hopeful that we can take away something good out of this terrible experience and do something good. And that's something that's up to each one of us as an individual. It's like, what matters more to us? I mean, our personal health should matter to us. Our personal health should matter to us individually, and because we want to be around for our family longer. But we don't want these pandemics to continue. If we can avoid eating animal products and exploiting animals and avoid pandemics, why would we not want to do that? We need people to make the connection. And Jane, that's why your show is so important, because you're constantly talking about this connection. And so many people, they don't understand. They need to understand how eating and exploiting animals, it causes human diseases, it causes viruses and pandemics, it hurts our planet. One of these things needs to matter to everybody, right? I mean, maybe they don't care about something, but something here needs to matter. And just by transitioning to a plant-based diet, you can do good for all of it. You can save animals, you can save our planet, you can have better personal health, you can be around longer for your family. I mean, why would we not want to do something that benefits all these things? One task, changing to a plant-based diet can benefit so many different things. I don't understand why anybody wouldn't want to do it.
We are talking to the founder of Green Culture in Trinity, Florida. In that area, you're in Trinity, Florida, your restaurant, Green Culture is in the same area. You're also the founder of Solid Rock Community School, which has an incredible academic program and also serves a plant-based meal every day to the students there. And I just want to show a couple of I'll cover you for a second, show some of the dishes, the delicious dishes that you do at your restaurant. Does this look like a terrible sacrifice that you're never going to be able to really enjoy food again? You got an acai bowl there. You've got a plant-based burger. You've got muffins. You've got incredible smoothies. I mean, this is all a psychological issue. And, I do liken it to addiction. I do believe that there is a dairy addiction in this country. And I have the dubious honor, I wish I wasn't, but I'm a bit of an expert in addiction because I just celebrated 25 years sober. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And I have to tell you that when I was in my disease and people tried to hint that maybe it wasn't such a good idea that I would have that second glass, or they would come to my house for a party and they didn't want to drink, I got very defensive. And I didn't want to hear their message. And then I hit bottom. I made a complete fool of myself at a party, which I had done before, but a friend of mine had gotten sober, who I used to party with. And I called him up and I said, okay, you're right. I do need help. And that was 25 years ago, this past April. And April 1st, April Fool's Day. That was a perfect sobriety date for me. But the point was that when I hit bottom, I had a moment of clarity. And I was able to look in the mirror and say, that person last night was me. Oh, my God. And this is what we need and then I had a psychic shift. And, every night I would tell myself, because I was a nightly drinker, not a morning drinker. I was one of those, I go to work and I work hard and then I come home and I drink too much and then next day I have a hangover. And, I had a psychic shift. For years, I told myself, I will not drink tonight. And the willpower didn't work. Willpower does not work against addiction. Okay. Willpower creates stress. Stress creates anxiety and cravings. Cravings lead to binges. Binges lead to remorse. And then remorse leads to the cycle happening all over again. When the remorse wears off, the willpower is exerted for a short period of time, and then the cravings start. It's just a cycle. Boom, boom, boom. Willpower doesn't work against addiction. Surrender works against addiction. Realization that every time you negotiate with a particular substance, you lose. Every time I negotiated with alcohol, I lost. Every time our culture negotiates with the meat industry, we lose. We lose. We lose our moral standing. We lose our health. We destroy our planet. We cannot negotiate successfully with killing all these animals as a culture, and individually we lose. We lose our health. Now we have to suffer from a pandemic. Now, and the studies have shown that people who are eating a classic standard American SAD diet, who are suffering from obesity, heart disease, cancer, they are more likely to be hospitalized as a result of this virus.
So Jane, I was a vegetarian for 30 years plus before I went vegan, and that was because of addiction to cheese. Cheese is very addicting. Look up casing. It's very addicting. And that's what stops vegetarians from being vegan. Food is absolutely an addiction. I'm a health coach. I work with people who are addicted to food every day. That's their biggest addiction. And the reality is, I think it's a harder addiction to break than drugs and alcohol because it's socially acceptable and it's sold everywhere. At least drugs and alcohol have a stigma that go with them. Eating hamburgers and eating animal products don't have a stigma. So it's so hard for people to break that addiction. It's everywhere. It's in front of your face. I mean, they're not showing morphine commercials. You know what I mean? It's like drugs and alcohol have a stigma. People know that there's a problem. They know that they're addicting. But when it comes to food, they don't acknowledge it. But yet it is, I believe personally, it's the #1 addiction that we have in the United States. And
absolutely. Absolutely, without a question. And it's literally built into the side of freeways. You don't say, on the side of freeways 5 miles to cocaine.
Right.
5 miles to the next fast food joint where you're going to get something highly processed, packaged with sugar, salt, and fat. Those are 3 substances that we are pre-programmed to crave to get us through times of famine.
It's literally an addiction that we approve, advertise, and endorse. It's like,
exactly.
Can you imagine?
But nature is very powerful. And what's happening now is nature is saying, enough. This is morally wrong. Okay? This poor animal who has the emotional and intellectual development of a toddler human, they've shown that. Pigs are far smarter than dogs, dying and defeated. And after a short life of abuse, probably a 6-month-old baby, that's when they usually slaughter them, dying on a slaughterhouse floor. This is morally wrong. I don't care what your religion is. What would Jesus say? What would Buddha say? What would Jesus say about this? Okay? So nature is now flexing her muscle, and as Dr. Rao says, so much more powerful than we are. And he believes that we are going now into the cocooning phase, where either we're going to shrivel up and die, or we're going to emerge as a butterfly species, more evolved and not killing. And then bringing it down to the everyday level, Bank of America just issued a report that sounds like it was written by a vegan animal activist, saying essentially the future of food is meatless. And the title is, "We Have to Stop Meat, eating this way. We have to stop meating this way."
That's awesome.
Talking about the development of not just vegan products, vertical farming, laboratory grown meat, and essentially painting a picture in the future of a world where the Gen Zers have turned their parents vegan, and they are that we are reversing climate change, preventing pandemics, and lowering our skyrocketing healthcare costs by switching to a plant-based diet. It's not brain surgery. The big companies and the big thinkers already know this.
That's awesome.
Okay, they know this. The big meat processors have invested in vegan companies. They have put out their own plant-based brands. They just want to make money. And as this pandemic causes them more and more grief, the media is awash now with talk about people in slaughterhouses getting coronavirus and what the slaughterhouse companies, the meat processing companies, did wrong. There's going to be a point where they say, this ain't worth it. You know, and it's so obvious. Okay, I have some companion animals. I now have 5 because I fostered another dog during this crisis, and I'm a failed foster. It's a lot of work. 5 animals, a cat and 4 dogs, a lot of work. Imagine if you've got 20,000 chickens, or there's one hog processing plant that came up last night. Rachel Maddow was talking about meat packing. It's actually a slaughterhouse. Let's call it what it is. Meat packing sounds like you're packing something on a suitcase going on vacation. So slaughterhouse, 20,000 hogs are slaughtered there every day. 20,000 hogs.
What our government needs to do is, instead of subsidizing these industries, we need to offer them a way to switch. You know, we've seen that happen. We see stories of where a dairy farm will switch to a berry farm, or where somebody will all of a sudden start, they'll stop slaughtering animals and they've now got, they're doing produce, whatever. We need to start subsidizing to help those that are in the factory farming industry switch over to a more sustainable, compassionate farming industry, because those exist. And we can do that. Why aren't we doing that? Why are we chasing after and funding factory farms, wet markets, and slaughterhouse? Let's change it. Let's help these people, because these people want to survive too, right? These people running factory farms and slaughterhouses and wet markets. I mean, I can't imagine that this is what they want to do for a living. They want to make money. Okay. But how could they want to kill animals? How could they want to be in, knee-high blood and guts? They can't. That can't be what they want to do. They want to survive, right? So if we can help them transition, why would they not transition? We see it happening throughout the country and throughout the world. That's where our focus needs to be. It's not funding to keep these in existence. It's helping these transition to a new existence. That's how I feel.
Yes. And, you raised the obvious point, but I will say that the people who are running these businesses, they're not getting their hands dirty. The farmers, quote unquote, of today, they all live in New York City on Park Avenue or wherever. This is not farming. In fact, the head of the department that's in charge of all this even said to the farmers, get big or get out. So this is also the small farmers.
Farmers get out. You know what I mean? I want the farmers to get out. I want the farmers.
Yeah, but it's not as easy. See, they're being factory farmed too. And this is what Dr. Rouse says. We're all being factory farmed. Mm-hmm. They need us to get sick so they can sell us the pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceutical industry is extraordinarily powerful. They have the most lobbyists. So you have meat, dairy, pharmaceuticals together, aligned. Because if people weren't eating the meat and the dairy, they wouldn't need all the pharmaceuticals. You've got cholesterol lowering drugs, billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry. You've got erectile dysfunction drugs. All of that would decrease as people got healthier, and they wouldn't need drugs to compensate for the fact that they're packing cholesterol, which only exists in animal products, into their system, which is causing plaque, which is blocking arteries, which lead to erectile dysfunction, heart disease, stroke. So they are very much aligned against any change. What we really need to do is for other industries to realize that this isn't worth it and that it's hurting their bottom line. So these food industries could switch to plant-based. The insurance industries could certainly want to switch to plant-based because they're paying for they're shelling out insurance money for all the people who are sick and getting stent operations, et cetera, et cetera. That's a lot of payout. Okay. So the healthcare system should want to a certain degree, make people healthier. Although, as we know in the documentary, What the Health, the brilliant documentary where Kip Anderson, the filmmaker, goes up and wants to talk to a hospital that does stent operations where they clear up the clogged arteries. And the woman runs out and says, we can't talk about that. This is our business. This is our business. Okay. So if people got healthy, they wouldn't need stent operations. What happens to that business? So the healthcare system is toxic right now. It is totally toxic. It wants people to get sick. If you look at advertiser-based cable news, you see meat, dairy, pharmaceutical commercials predominantly with an occasional insurance, car insurance or car commercial thrown in. The entire system is caught up in this toxic industry. So there are many other industries that are leeching off the meat and dairy industry, the pharmaceutical industry. So that's why it's complicated. But a lot of these farmers who are contracted out by the big meat processors to grow the animals in their concentrated animal feeding operations, their CAFOs, they want out. They make pennies per chicken, for example. Now we could transition them from chicken farming to mushroom farming. That's exactly what the Ranchers Advocacy Program at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. And I think that that's possible. I think it takes a lot of people and a lot of effort to keep raising awareness and pushing these kind of things. But I do think it's possible because we've seen signs of it occurring. Even before this pandemic, we saw signs of those occurring. But now this pandemic has really brought the focus to the forefront. So even just to individuals, like I'm really talking heavily about to individuals, just about doing their own gardening, right? To not being a slave to the grocery store, because who even wants to go to the grocery store right now, right? So if you can have your own fresh produce at your house or in your backyard or wherever, that's great. I can tell you, as a school, we already went plant-based last year. All of the food that we provide at the school is all plant-based. But for next school year, we're doing our own seed to table garden. So that way,
I have a photograph here from your website of your garden.
yeah, well, those are just random photos because we're in the process of making our garden.
All
So
right.
that's to give you an idea. Our garden is going to be a combination of raised beds and aeroponics. And we're really excited about this because we're going to be teaching the kids how to do the garden, like I said, from seed to table. They're going to do the whole thing. And I think that that is so important. And I've never thought it was as important. And I've always thought it was important, but never as important as I know it is today. Because I can tell you personally, as I've started gardening at home, my husband really he's honestly the one who's doing the majority of gardening, but we have some gardening happening at home where we're doing it, and it feels amazing to not have to go to the grocery store and just be able to walk in your yard. Or there's tower gardens. I actually represent them also, and we're using those for the school for aeroponics. It's like exciting stuff that we can now do in our own house. You know what I mean? So we don't have to run to the grocery store to get herbs or veggies. We can do this. We don't have to be slaves to the grocery store or to the big corporations all the time. We can start taking some personal responsibility for what we need. So I think gardening is massively important. Like I said, it's more important today than it's ever been in the past. And as a school, to have all of the students learning this, I think is going to be phenomenal. And we're going to be doing a really big community garden. So once it's in progress and up, I'll be sharing tons of pictures with you because we have some really cool things happening. And because we're a plant-based school, that is what we use for everything that we do in our lunch program. Everything is plant-based. So it's really going to help supplement the food that we're providing to all of the kids.
Yeah, and it's highly nutritious. It's healthy. They're not eating junk food. And so what we're seeing here is, as Dr. Rao said, I keep quoting him because he has such pearls of wisdom. Seeing progress in real time is very hard. In other words, we don't have the God view of this situation. We're in the midst of it. You're trying to keep your credible business, your green culture restaurant open. This is some of the incredible food that she serves there. You're grappling with it. It feels like maybe we're losing one day, maybe we're winning one day. But as Martin Luther King Jr. said, the arc of history or the arc of evolution, human evolution is slow, but it bends toward compassion. And I'm sort of misquoting him, but you get the general idea. And so I do feel that this crisis, while my heart goes out to everybody suffering, is an opportunity for self-reflection and growth to evolve our society into going plant-based for the planet, for our own health, to prevent future pandemics, to reverse climate change, for all the reasons that are so obvious to you and me, but that people don't want to see. Some people. But, here's one thing that we were talking about when we were doing an entire day seminar for Vegan World 2026 and climate healers, is that the law of unintended consequences. We're fighting, and then all of a sudden this pandemic comes and is shuttering a lot of the slaughterhouses in America. So it reminds us of, we never know when that moment's going to happen where society's going to shift because of an invention, because of a pandemic. There were many people who were advocating for horses because at the turn of the last century, the century before, like the 19th century, and all the way back to, the beginnings of time practically, horses have always been horribly abused by humans. And they're still being abused on the racetracks and here, there, the wild horse roundups. But the primary abuse was carriage horses. And there were advocates, at the in the 1900s advocates for carriage horses.
Mm-hmm.
And they fought and they fought and they fought, and all of a sudden the electric carriage came along. And the electric carriage changed everything.
Yeah.
So this is our electric carriage moment. But nonetheless, it's messy, it's sloppy, and we have to figure it out. It's a puzzle. I try to regard all of these situations as challenges to inspire us to evolve, whether it's Jane Unchained Nonprofit, my personal life. I'm re-examining my consumption and realizing that, I have to look in the mirror too. Every time I get a box now, I feel like I'm taking my life in my hands to open it. It better be important. It better not be some trifle. And so to take my own inventory, I have ordered trifles. I have gotten things that I don't need. And one of the things that I'm looking at is I don't want to get stuff I don't need anymore. I don't have to upgrade my car. I have a fine car. It works. May not be as glamorous as somebody else's car, but I don't need a new car. You know what I'm saying? I'm re-examining my own behavior to say, how can I learn from this crisis? Where can I evolve?
I actually was having a meeting with the parents the other night, and we were doing a Zoom meeting, and I asked the parents, I said, so tell me something that you're learning from this situation, being home, because everybody's on virtual school right now with the school. Tell me something that you're doing differently or learning right now, because I really want people to re-examine their own life, because so much has changed right now. We're in chaotic rushes all the time. We're always with deadlines. We're always trying to meet the needs of 100 different things. And now all of a sudden life has just slowed down. And what I don't want people to do is just binge watch Netflix, lay on the couch and play Xbox. I want them to really re-examine themselves and use their time wisely. So I've offered all of the parents in the school free plant-based cooking classes so they can learn some plant-based cooking skills. And
Have they taken you up on it?
I have a group that have, not enough. So I wish more would take me up on it, but I do have a group of parents, a couple high schoolers and teachers who have taken me up on it. So that's awesome. And then I'm really trying to get people to look at re-examining their health and wellness also with getting outside and walking and riding their bike and being out in the sun and getting some air, because we don't do that normally, right? And health and wellness, it's a big picture, and I want people to really re-examine their life. We can make changes right now. If you can't make the time to make changes right now, you are never going to do it. This is where we are all being given an opportunity to change things about our own life. And I know it's not easy. This is not ideal, but it is slowing us down where we can now, I've told everybody, either read the book or get the Audible from Michael Greger, How Not to Die. Everybody needs to read that book.
The best book.
Do you know?
I actually tried to get neighbors. I see a pattern when I'm here. I live in the Venice area of California, and I see all the barbecues, the dead animal barbecues in the summertime. And then in the wintertime, I see the paramedics. Literally, I've seen this with my own eyes. I hear the ambulance. I hear the fire engine. I know it's likely not a fire. It's usually somebody having a heart attack, a stroke, being wheeled out. And the cause and effect is so obvious to me. And I've tried to get neighbors to read that book.
So let me tell you,
I give the wife a book here, How Not to Die.
It's a big book, Jane. It's a big, big book. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, I'm not someone who loves to read. I'm constantly reading contracts. So when I don't have to read, I don't like to read. But it is on Audible. So what I love to do is when I go for a bike ride or a walk, I put my earbud in and I listen to it on Audible. And that book, I think it's like 27 hours. I mean, it's 13 hours. I don't know. It's a lot of hours of book to listen to. And I have listened to it at least a dozen times.
Wow.
I love
to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. It's a brilliant book. Everybody needs to listen to it or read it. And I'm also an Audible member, and I listen to a lot of things. I'll get that one. That'll be my next points, will be the How Not to Die. But let me say this. Dr. Rao also pointed out something else, because we just did a whole 8-hour seminar. So a lot of his, he's a genius. And he said, look, it's hard to see positive change and negative change in real time. But if you use the metaphor of the pandemic, look how it seemed like, oh, everything was normal. In the weeks where we could have really contained it, it's counterintuitive. It's when everything seems okay, right? Then by lagging on that front, now it's shot up and we're playing catch up. But you saw exponential growth in action. It's a couple of one death and a couple of deaths, and now it's, you know, many thousands of deaths. Exponential growth.
Right.
He said you can also see the same phenomenon with the vegan movement. You know, share this video out, because even if one person out of all of our conversation says, you know, they're making a lot of sense, I'm going to explore eating some of these delicious plant-based meals, better for me, better for the planet, better for the animals, prevent future pandemics. Yeah, you know what? Maybe they're right. I don't have to have all that medication. My healthcare costs will go down. One person, that exponential growth is extraordinary. So what he said was that for this to become a global pandemic, you know, it just needs one person needs to infect 1.5 people. So if you look at the same concept of exponential growth in a positive way, all we have to do is get 1.5 people to listen to this with an open mind and say, yeah, you know, I'm gonna start eating some of these gorgeous vegetable dishes, and they're delicious, and it's guilt-free eating. I'm gonna lose weight maybe too, and you know, just switch. That person will then convince somebody else, 1.5 other people, and boom.
We're going to see that at the school all the time. So we'll have students who I've had them come to me, teenagers who will come to me and say, yeah, I was talking to my mom about some things we've been talking about here at school, and we're going to try this plant-based diet. Can you send me some recipes? And I'm like, oh, yeah, let's send them right out, you know? So I see it all the time at school. It's really great because kids are more receptive to change. They haven't been stuck in the same old stuff as long. So if they can taste something that they like, they're more apt to continue to have it. You know, so when we talk to the kids about health and we give them good food, some of these kids go home and they talk to their parents about it. And then we do the classes for the parents in the evening where we talk about health and plant-based foods, and we give recipes and do food demos. And then we have parents who are like, okay, let me try this. And sometimes they're just, you know, they're adding 1 or 2 meals a week. And then all of a sudden they start adding more. And then let me tell you something, it'll be months. And then I'll see somebody and they'll say to me, I just saw a parent right before all of this started happening. I saw her in the office and she said, oh, you're going to be really happy about what we're going to do today. And I said, oh, what are you going to do? She goes, we're going to the grocery store to buy all plant-based foods because we have gone 100%. And I had no idea. I hadn't talked to this parent I hadn't even seen her in months. Yeah. So all this time she was thinking about this and they were going in that direction, but I don't even know what's happening. So sometimes I find out months or years later that somebody made a transition I didn't even know.
Yeah, like years ago, I hired a website designer for another site. I'm talking decades ago, back when the internet was just getting started. And I met him once and he was quite overweight and pasty looking. And then he worked on the site, which was a vegan site, for several months. I hadn't seen him in person. And then finally I had to deliver something to him. It was a check or something back in the day. And I knocked at the door and this person answered. And I was like, well, where is so-and-so? And he says, that's me. I looked at him. He was unrecognizable. He was thin. His face had this glow. I saw a person from a pasty, sort of hard to define person that was just not healthy, to a person who looked very attractive and intense and dynamic. And I was like, that's you? He said, yeah, you got to me. I was filing all this stuff for you for this website. And I went plant-based. And it was such a funny thing to see his transformation. He never told me. It was just what I really did. I guess he got all the content, and while processing the content, he got the message and transformed his life. So that was just a very funny story of transformation. But it's happening around us. That's why it's so important that we keep the vegan restaurants surviving during this time. When I got sober 5 years ago, I had moments of incomprehensible demoralization before. But what I didn't have was an action point. I didn't have a do this. And when I got sober, it was because I had a friend who had gotten sober who said, you need help, and said, call me when the time comes. And he said, it will come. Call me. And I had that call to make, and I made that call. And that made all the difference. Our action points are our vegan restaurants. Okay. And so we need to keep those restaurants going so that when this crisis ends, people will have a place to go and order in. And there's a lot of systems now going on. We've been talking to a bunch of different restaurateurs about their strategies, and we're going to talk more about that. But I just want you to know that what you're doing is so important. It's so much more than a restaurant. So we'll do everything we can to help green culture, plant-based kitchen stay alive in your section of Florida. Where is it now? Where your Trinity is based near Tampa, right?
Newport Richey. That's the same area with two different names. And we are the only vegan restaurant in that entire county. And we've only been open 7 months. I mean, we're a new restaurant as it is. We're the only one in the county. And then even if you go to other counties, you've got a 45-minute drive in any direction to get to another restaurant. So they're really, this is not an area that's got a lot happening for the plant-based or vegan movement. So we came in as an educational restaurant. Our whole goal, and the only reason we started the restaurant, was to raise awareness in our community, because it just doesn't exist in our community. It's not there. And so we really wanted to bring plant-based information to the public. And what better way to do it than a restaurant? It's very hard to just have an open meeting and people will come to it. But guess what? They come to restaurants. So if you can get them in the door for food, you have an opportunity to talk to people and influence people. And so in our restaurant, we have TV screens that have educational information going on all the time. Now, obviously, right now, the screens aren't going. Right this minute, Green Culture is not open. We're getting ready to reopen. So, and actually we're revising some things on our menu, and we're making some changes to make it better for delivery and carry out. So right now everything's changing and we're trying to work with that.
Guess what? Susan Anderson says, Jane, how do cattle ranchers go about changing their ranchers into animal sanctuaries? Please get back to me. I have cattle ranchers in my family. Well, Susan Anderson, I am going to get back to you, and I'm going to hook you up with Renee King-Sonnen, whose rancher advocacy program is providing a template for ranchers to change their operations. And they don't have to all become sanctuaries. They can do other things to make money. Yes, there have been some cattle ranches that have become, for example, picturesque areas where they can become use some of their facilities, their barns, their giant barns for even weddings and community events. But there are many. There's a whole wide variety of things that can be done using the land to grow produce and other things, including perhaps hemp, to provide an income for the ranchers when they stop selling the cattle to slaughter. That's exactly what Renee King-Sonnen did. So I'm going to hook you up. I'll contact you on Messenger as soon as this is over. Yeah, but what you were saying is so important. Look, these vegan restaurants are not just restaurants, okay? They are community hubs where vegans can get together, where people can show films, where you have the videotapes, where you educate. They really are like way stations, sanctuaries, informational centers where people can get this crucial information to save their own lives and save the planet. So I will talk to you offline about all the ideas that we have to keep vegan restaurants going. And let me say this new normal is going to persist. The whole, again, I'm quoting Dr. Rouse. Dr. Rouse said, isn't it interesting that nature waited until we had all the technologies to be able to communicate remotely before she shut us down? Okay. we've had pandemics before, but none have shut us down in the modern era like this one has shut us down. But now we have Zoom and we have StreamYard and we have BeLive and we have all these other technologies for communicating that we didn't have. So there is a new normal. A lot of people will not be going out as much because this, again, they're worried about second waves and third waves. And so there's going to be a transformation in our society. Okay, retail is in complete crisis because people are not, before this, they weren't going into department stores. I can't even remember the last time I walked into a department store. So in this fundamental shift, we can use this crisis as an opportunity to transform our businesses, to create even smart kitchens, to figure out new modalities where we can serve the community, but it might not look like the traditional restaurant that it has been. Mm-hmm. So this is the kind of thing that we really need to focus on. And there's different ideas. Every restaurant owner I've talked to has different ideas. But one thing we do need is a vegan restaurant association. Having talked to everybody, I realized this is something we really need, a vegan restaurant association. You know, the people who work in the animal exploitation industries, they have all their infrastructure planned, okay? Mm-hmm. Because that's what they're paid to do. And if they don't do that, they can get fired. We need to have that same sense of urgency in creating these institutions for us to be able to survive these crises and thrive. And so I would love to talk to you offline about that too. More to come. So Michelle FASNACHT, you are absolutely inspiring.
Thanks, Jane. You're inspiring. You're amazing.
You. All right, everybody, share this out, please. This is an opportunity to change ourselves, change the world, and make this entire planet a kinder place. Talk to you soon.